Bitcoin has become an uncorrelated asset or less correlated asset to the rest of the financial market, right? Bitcoin is actually gaining strength. Right? There is volatility, but relatively speaking, it's a lot less volatile. Michael Saylor thinks that this will be a $20 trillion asset class. Right now, it's about two. And Tom Lee over at Fundstrat says that in the history of financial market, there's never been an asset that crossed $2 trillion that has disappeared since. So we're at the point of too big to fail. I think the volatility will be greatly reduced in Bitcoin because institutional holdings and things like that is gaining traction, sovereign wealth funds and the whole bit. So I think that all the trends are pointing towards a more stable, a more less volatile, a uncorrelated financial asset. I think it's an ideal situation to be part of any person or company or country's treasury strategy.
Hi and welcome to the Financial Fox, the show where we explore how technology is reshaping finance, unlocking freedom, and helping us invest smarter. I'm Steffi, your host, been in the finance and investment space for over a decade and started to invest in crypto back in 2017. This podcast is all about real conversations with forward-thinking minds to spark new ideas and give you insights that matter. Today, I'm joined by Michael Mo, CEO and co-founder of KULR Technology Group, a US-listed company developing advanced energy management and storage solutions. Why I decided to bring Michael on the show? Well, KULR has a strong growth and also a solid balance sheet, and they are one of the first public listed companies to follow the MicroStrategy playbook, integrating Bitcoin into its treasury strategy. As you know, I run a PR agency, and one of the things that we are focusing on and we are really committed is supporting listed company embracing Bitcoin with smart and clear messaging on why Bitcoin and why now. So having Michael on the show is a real opportunity, not just for CEOs tuning in, but also for investors who are listening to our show to better understand where the future of corporate strategy is headed. Before we get into the interview, a couple of things. If you are watching our show, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and also follow Financial Fox on social media. You will find all the links in the description. Remember, your support is crucial to grow the channel so we can educate more people about Bitcoin. Please remember that the content on the show is for informational purposes only and not intended as financial advice. Any opinions expressed by me or my guests are ours alone, and you should not act solely on the back of them. As always, do your own research, level up your skills, and be accountable for your own decisions. This show is supported by HIVE Digital Technologies, and more about them later in the show. With that being said, let's get to my conversation with Michael Mo. Hi, Michael. It's so great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me, Stephanie. It's great to be here.
For somebody like me that's been in crypto since 2017 and has been working with public listed company for over a decade, it's so great to see that finally, we are seeing these two worlds coming together. And KULR was one of the first company to get into Bitcoin as a treasury strategy. And this is now becoming kind of like a popular trend, especially in the US. We are seeing more and more company, they are exploring this path. But here in Europe and especially in the UK is something relative new. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your insight and sharing as well your journey into Bitcoin.
Okay, great. I'd love to share KULR's journey and my personal journey to get to the orange pill and be on the Bitcoin treasury strategy. So actually, the inflection moment for me was, well, first of all, I've been following Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy for 30 plus years. I've been in the tech industry since the late 90s, and obviously strategy, MicroStrategy and Mike Saylor was one of the darlings of the first .com boom and bust. The very story alive, and he was one of the youngest billionaires in the late 90s, and with the dot-com bust, and then it was very story, he lost like 90% of his wealth at very young billionaire. And then SoftBank's Masa-san lost more money than he did. So that was a very, very long history following Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. So always been a big fan. But my orange pill moment was when I listened to his Q3 2024 earnings call from MicroStrategy. I think the call total was about 2 hours. First, 30 minutes or so was the CEO and CFO talk about the performance of the operating business and etc. And then Michael get on in minute 30, 31, spent about 45 minutes to reiterate his philosophy, his analysis about Bitcoin, historical execution, how it compares to other financial assets. That was kind of a really a inflection point for me, and a much wide, like, eye-opening moment for me. And after that, I think I spent a week watching every Michael Saylor interview available on YouTube. And so I maxed out my broadband bandwidth for that week, but was just fascinating. His interview on Lex Friedman for 3+ hours was mesmerizing, and there was other interviews that he did where he talked about the concept of Bitcoin being the digital energy, digital capital. Obviously, we know digital capital, but his concept about digital energy, that was very, very interesting. We, on the operating side, we are an energy management company. We create thermal management and energy management products for NASA or US DoD, and then our products on the Mars rover, International Space Station. So it's very advanced kind of thermal management, energy management product. But what he talked about digital energy was, think about Bitcoin as a form that actually started with energy source, whether it's fossil fuel or solar energy, that converted to electricity. And electricity was able to, you were able to mine the Bitcoin with electricity, and then it become a form of energy, capital, so forth. And the store and transport of the Bitcoin, which is digital energy, is the lowest cost across any financial asset across space and time. So I think he gave an example of, if you want to ship and store $1 billion worth of gold from New York to Tokyo, you have to charter a private airplane and have a few guys with big guns to guard this thing. It will cost you probably around $250,000 to $300,000. So it's about 25 basis point out of $1 billion. And then when you get to Tokyo, you need to find yourself a bunker and storage and and people with guns to guard it, and then you still incur cost. That Bitcoin is the lowest cost of capital to both transport and store. In this example, $1 billion worth of capital with the lowest form of cost. You can just put on a thumb drive with the key, and you can take it anywhere in the world. And across time, history has shown that Bitcoin has appreciated better than any other asset class, financial asset class. So that digital energy form, both store, transport, and conversion, to me personally, it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. That just, in some of the philosophy and in some of the math and physics, he talked about how that digital energy was created with the same math and physics that we use for our thermal management product. I don't want to bore you the detail, but there's a lot. So that resonated with me tremendously, and that's really the key inflection point how we got into the Bitcoin Treasury strategy for KULR.
Before we dive into today's interview, I'd like to introduce you to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies, a publicly listed company building the next generation data center infrastructure with 100% renewable energy. HIVE was the first crypto miner to go public and the first one to have an AI strategy. With over 2,600 Bitcoin on their balance sheet and operations in Canada, Sweden, Iceland, and Paraguay, HIVE is fully committed to transforming communities, rebalancing the energy grid, and delivering value to shareholders with a low dilution and cash-focused approach. If you don't know HIVE, check them out at hivedigitaltechnologies.com. So, Tell us a bit more about KULR, because obviously our audience might not be familiar with your company, and it's very interesting that the element of energy, is what kind of caught you into, right, this is quite interesting.
Yeah. So we at the core we are a energy management, thermal management company. That's our core heritage. Then we have developed key technology to keep electronics and battery cool and safe in extreme environments. So our technology is born out of our work mostly with NASA and other U.S. government agencies. So we've developed the technology to keep electronics cool and safe, and the battery safe on the Mars rover. So our technology is on the Mars rover Perseverance on Mars right now. We also provide technology for NASA on the International Space Station to keep the astronauts' batteries safe. And over the last few years, we've been working on taking that technology and applying to the world of energy storage, electric mobility like EVs, electric planes, electric mobility applications, and also consumer electronics and so forth. So that's our core heritage and our core business over the last 12 years. And most recently, we start getting into the physical AI robotics world with our partnership with a company called German Bionics. And we just announced this, I think, about a week ago. And they built the world's most powerful exoskeleton suit that you can wear it. And it's a wearable robot that helps you lift and walk. Okay. And we started the partnership with them as we were expanding our KULR One battery platform to serve the robotics world. But very quickly, we realized it's a fantastic product. It's their sixth generation product, and they have been really focused on solving one key problem, which is lower back pain. Workforce, especially here in the US, which we have an aging workforce and we're short of physical workers. And when you are lifting things in the manufacturing, construction, nurses lifting patients up and helping patients move around, transportation and warehouse, like Amazon warehouse, UPS, FedEx, for all that. Manual labor is constantly lifting things up, heavy things, repetitively, boxes, merchandise, all that. So this suit helps you to lift things up, reduce the strain on your body, especially the lower back.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of sensors on the suit, so it will tell you if you're getting fatigue, give you warning signals that you should take a break,
That's
and also be able to read the signals from your body. So after the day's work's done, and it give you recommendations on how you should do cool down exercises to recover from the stress. And tomorrow morning, before you put the suit on, get to work, what stretch you should do to help you to reduce the chance of injury. Right? So so it is a
So this is so true. You are talking to somebody that has been doing yoga for over 10 years, and basically people don't realize how important is to look after your back. And as they do any kind of training or they do their daily things, they're just compromising their body and they are not paying attention at the way they move, actually, because they don't know. So having something that actually can help you and can guide you in doing proper movement, I think is really game changing.
Yeah, lower back, I think it's the number one cause for injury at the US workforce. We have workers' comp insurance, which covers people when you get sick and injured. I think it's the number one cause for workers' comp insurance claims, so forth. So there's a huge demand for this. So I think we are really at the beginning of how to use robotics, sensors, and AI to help everyday Americans, Europeans, perhaps, Germans, everyday workers, to help them to understand how robotics and AI can enhance their work productivity, make their work more enjoyable, and actually empower them and make their life more enjoyable.
Wow, fantastic. I think we need another episode to talk about that.
Yeah.
What you're doing. Now, going back to the Bitcoin strategy, I often say that it's not really for every company, especially when, everything becomes trendy and people want to jump on the bandwagon, but they are not really understanding the risks, the implication of things. Where I was listening at your recent webcast and financial result, you have got a strong balance sheet, you have got growing revenues, and that gives you obviously flexibility, right? Perhaps it would be good if you can share a little bit more about your current financial position and how that supports your Bitcoin strategy, and also how Bitcoin serves strategy.
Right. I think, yes. So we do have a very strong balance sheet. I think I shared that at the end of Q1, we have over $80 million in cash and Bitcoin digital assets combined. We have no debt, and our revenue is growing. And now we're just entering to new markets with strategic partnerships. We think our revenue continue to grow, and we're on the path to profitability. So these are really positive signs that we expect to happen in 2025, and we also expect we will double our revenue in 2025. But I think what I'd love to share with people about my journey to Bitcoin and also my company's journey to Bitcoin is it is really helping you establish a frame of mind. So what I meant by that is there's two things that I think is super important going forward. One is how volatile the market is, and number two, how to survive and thrive in this volatile market. So, I get asked the question a lot about how do I deal with the volatility of Bitcoin? Obviously, if you have $80 million sitting in the bank, you wake up tomorrow, it's $80 million. But if you have $80 million worth of Bitcoin, tomorrow you can wake up with 75 million or 85 million. So there's a fluctuation because it changes every second and 24 hours a day. The way I think about this is, Michael Saylor kind of said it best, volatility is vitality. So in order for you to, for a company to really kind of, the way we think about it is to position themselves to succeed in the age of AI, robotics, where things are happening so fast. And you're going to have your own DeepSeek moments. You're going to have some black swan moments happen in the market to you, the industry, or your company, or any company, without warnings, without your own fault. It's independent of what you do, but the market is going to give you black swan moments. And I think what Bitcoin can help us do is to help the management and the whole thinking, the culture, to be constantly prepared for black swan moments, because it's a very dynamic situation, right? So that's, I think, what Bitcoin does for us, to help the shaping the thinking of the management team, the company, to survive a very dynamic or to thrive in a very dynamic environment. And I think that you're going to have changes happening at exponential rate, right? I mean, right now, AI's intelligence is already surpassing my intelligence for sure. And I think it's only going to go exponential from here. So how do you position a company in the age of AI in this exponential availability and growth of intelligence? And the black swan moment is to be prepared for it, okay? It's to get the whole mindset to be prepared for it. So Bitcoin, getting into robotics, getting into AI, to extend from a core base of thermal management and battery technology into these adjacent areas for growth, and really have the management team, the team, to think about that growth and be prepared for unforeseen events happening and constantly to be adjusting and pivoting for these growth, I think is super important. So I don't know if that's exactly the answer that you're looking for from a financial perspective, but I think in addition to the financial, the balance sheet and the appreciation of Bitcoin over time, which Michael Saylor and everybody would be a really good expert at and give you data about that, I think the culture aspect of it is something that a company, a board, should think about how that can help them potentially to shape the company.
Did you have to orange peel your board?
I think that it's very, I would think about it as a process. So I think that, just to come back to the process that we took, it was the beginning of December when we actually went on to X to did a survey about, hey, what do my stakeholders, my shareholders, or people that follow us on X, what do you think about KULR adopting a Bitcoin Treasury strategy? What we got is, thousands of feedback, and 2/3 of it, I think it's probably exactly 67%. 2/3 of it was saying yes. 1/3 of it says no. And out of the 1/3 no, we kind of dig a little bit deeper into it from the comments. We kind of guessed about 1/3 was just people just don't like Bitcoin and crypto, period. So you're never going to convert those people. That's okay. The 2/3 other people was concerned about, or was questioned about, do you have the financial whereabouts to do this? Number one. Number two, is that going to be a distraction for your core business? And history has shown that we've removed the concern for the latter two, because on December 20, we announced our first Bitcoin buy for $21 million. And we followed up with, I think, 4 or 5 additional buys. Now we're up to 668 Bitcoins. And our core business has strengthened, grown, and we're expanding to adjacent areas. So I think that the board is constantly having conversations and listening to the market, listen to different stakeholders, and evaluating that this is something that is ultimately we're here to increase shareholder value. That's my number one job, is increase shareholder value. As long as that's happening, we believe that over the long term, not the next second, next 10 seconds, or 10 days, but over time, we're actually really building core shareholder value, increasing that. We're we're convinced it's the right course to take.
Coming up in less than a month is Bitcoin Vegas, the biggest Bitcoin conference to be held in Vegas, happening 27, 29 of May. If you haven't got your ticket, use the code FOX10 to get 10% off the price. I hope to see you there. I think that's a very important point, is having that long-term view where you want to get your company to. And I see, not everybody is actually doing that. Some, they just look at the short term, and I think definitely Bitcoin goes into the first bucket. Now, I think one of the questions that also investor could ask would be around, right, if there is some hard times where, your things are not going so well, and are you going to sell your Bitcoin? Is that something that you would consider perhaps, or you would rather go to the market to raise capital?
Yeah, look, I think that, number one, we communicated that we're using surplus cash that we have to buy Bitcoin. So we have plenty of cash to run our core business. So we're in no need to sell the Bitcoin, number one. Number two is that I think that the last maybe 3-4 weeks have demonstrated extreme volatility in markets, financial markets across the world, because of, obviously the tariff situation, which is another black swan moment that nobody expected, kind of like DeepSeek, another black swan moment. But what you kind of have seen is Bitcoin has become an uncorrelated asset or less correlated asset to the rest of the financial market, right? So I think it's less volatile than the U.S. Treasury. It's less volatile than even U.S. currency. Currencies. I think US dollars depreciate about 10%. Bitcoin is actually gaining strength, right? There is volatility, but it's actually, relatively speaking, it's a lot less volatile. And it's definitely less volatile than some of the, mega cap stocks. And I think at some point in the last couple of weeks, there was even some liquidity tightness around US Treasury, overnight, whether it was a Japanese hedge fund selling it or unwinding the carry trade or some other things. But, so when you have a deeply liquid asset like Bitcoin that trades 24/7, you can get access to it, fully transparent, fully decentralized. Now you can see that it's decoupled from the rest of more decoupled now than before from the rest of the financial volatility. And, Michael Saylor thinks that this will be a $20 trillion asset class. Right now it's about two. And Tom Lee over at Fundstrat says that, there's in the history of financial market, there's never been an asset that crossed $2 trillion that has disappeared since. So we're at the point of too big to fail. I think the volatility will be greatly reduced in Bitcoin because institutional holdings and things like that is gaining traction. Sovereign wealth funds and the whole bit. So yeah, I think that all the trends are pointing towards a more stable, a more less volatile, a uncorrelated financial asset. I think it's an ideal situation to be part of any person or company or country's treasury strategy.
As a public listed company, obviously you're talking with different institutional investors. And since you got into Bitcoin, how that was perceived when you are doing your roadshow or you're having your meetings, did you see more interest in the company because of that? Did you see a resistance because you are into Bitcoin? So they kind of like, all right, how that changed your perception of KULR in the eye of institutional investors?
Yeah, I think that, we are still a very small company. I mean, our market cap is, $300-400 million. So we are exposed to a certain, group of class of institutional investors as well as retail investors. We're very transparent in our communication on what exactly we do. So what we do may not be for everybody. We don't pretend that we're not Google, right? So we're not gonna be in everybody's portfolio, and I don't think that's our goal. But I think that what you got to do is you got to stay true to your belief system. So our belief system is Bitcoin is our treasury strategy. We believe in physical AI. We believe in empowering everyday workers with physical AI in energy storage. We're a believer of the Cathy Wood's ARK Investments thesis that AI, robotics, blockchain, Bitcoin, and energy storage is at the cross point of convergence. All these things are converging together. So we're going to execute on that strategy. I think there are investors that, like what we, buy into that thesis. And there are people that may not buy into that thesis, but that's okay. We just got to be true to our thesis, communicate that, execute that, and the right investor and the right investor group will be part of our stakeholders.
Tell me more about, the adoption of this Bitcoin strategy, because obviously it's not something that, right, I do it and tomorrow you do it. You actually need a setup. You need on and off ramp. You need the custody solution. You need the right banking. You need maybe insurance. So you need a list of service providers that can support you in this strategy. And sometimes that can be challenging and could be something that maybe can put off some investors. So I would like you to share whatever was your experience in getting all this set up ready so you could actually execute on your Bitcoin strategy.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the whole setup environment in UK and in Europe, but in the US, it's becoming almost a very turnkey setup now, right? So we have our partnership with Coinbase to execute our Bitcoin, buy execution. The very seamless, almost too easy to spend $10 million buying Bitcoin, just a couple clicks. So I was joking with my CFO on board, like never in my imagination would be spending $10 million that quickly. So, but anyways, that's a joke aside. There's a very well established infrastructure from trading, custody, security, and the entire accounting, auditing, banking, and regulatory structure is actually quite well set up now in the US, especially with the new administration. The SEC has cleared a lot of these hurdles as well from a legal, from a financial, from a regulatory perspective. I think we're kind of in the best environment ever for crypto. So all the tailwind is behind it for us to just power forward.
Yeah, super interesting. That's great. There might obviously be difference between what we are seeing actually here in the UK. But listen, let's talk a bit about this intersection of AI and blockchain. Obviously, your company operates at this intersection of energy, aerospace, defense, transportation. How do you see these conversions of blockchain and AI working together in whatever is going to be our future?
Yeah, no, that's a super interesting topic. I think there is a lot of room for innovation, and we're trying to figure it out like everybody else. So we're launching a blockchain system to track our inventory, to give more transparency to our customers, to our partners about the battery cells and the work that we do for them. There's a work that we do for NASA and the space exploration is that we physically screen the battery cells that would be qualified to go into space missions. So there's a lot of test data to be collected, and we're moving all that data onto a blockchain so that whether it's NASA or other space customers, they can have absolute confidence in the validity and availability and the authenticity of all that data. So that's a big step for us. I think we're the first in industry to provide this kind of service, and I think that this decentralization form, this distributed decentralized philosophy or this architecture is going to give the most resilience to any system, right? So you think about energy storage for batteries, that's distributed energy at the edge. You think about robotics, exoskeleton, AI, the features that I talked about to help the workers. That's all intelligence available at the edge, not the server, but at the edge to the everyday people. So Bitcoin is decentralized and distributed money. Or capital. DeFi, decentralized, distributed intelligence, resources, and money is enabling resilience for everyday people. That's at the core level, that's what we need to enable.
About the challenges that we have seen at the infrastructure level.
Infrastructure meaning power and resources and things like that. Yeah. So obviously one of the biggest bottlenecks for AI and Bitcoin mining is energy cost, availability of energy. And so, people are actually building nuclear power plants now to power, data centers and so forth. So we're kind of involved in some of the cathode work for new modular nuclear power plants. But I think that it still comes back down to you distribute all that work across 1 million or 10 million nodes instead of put everything into a big data center, which you gotta get a gigawatt of power into it. If there is an architecture where you can distribute the intelligent crunching or calculation of that at the node level, and then you can time shift and space shift the energy requirement, and I think that becomes a more resilient architecture. So you look at DeepSeek, which is distillation of AI, and that's actually a much lighter architecture than the core AI, the large language model, and that's potentially getting more efficient, and you can probably process it more at the edge. And I think the new Meta Llama 4, not the behemoth version, but the other versions are, running on single NVIDIA H100, processors. Hopefully, eventually, in a year or so, you will be running on, the Jetson platform, a smaller version of that. So when you have AI distributed across, that each one of them consumes less power, can be localized. I think that's another architecture to solve the whole infrastructure problem, and that you don't need a large communication network either to synchronize everything, because everything could be processed locally and it could be asynchronous, so your communication and power requirement could be reduced.
Yeah, super interesting. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing, your journey into Bitcoin, and also what your company does is just really interesting.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having us. Yeah, you can follow us on KULR.ai. And we're fairly active on X, KULR Tech. Please follow us. I'm on X as well. Look for me, Michael Mo KULR, LinkedIn, YouTube channels. We continue to publish our work visually to keep our stakeholders up to date on our YouTube channels, TikTok, the whole bit. So yeah, please come along for our journey.
Love it. Thank you, Michael.